it's Rachel, and today I decided I'm going to do a wrap-up video. It's going to be like a third of the year wrap-up, so whatever I've read from January through April is what I'm going to talk about. I haven't read a ton this year, but like in April I read 10 books, and I'm so proud of myself because I don't think I've ever read 10 books in a month. I'll read like 6 books in a week, and then I will just not feel like reading for a couple weeks, or I'll read but not finish anything. I feel like that's kind of silly, and if I could just be more consistent, I would get more done, but I probably won't go into a lot of detail about these books just because it's a long wrap up and I don't want to be talking forever. I don't want to bore you guys. If you're interested in what I thought of them, you can find that on Goodreads. I will leave my Goodreads link below and you can check those out in there. So let's start. So the first book I finished of 2015 was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and this one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. The writing was beautiful. I put it on my favorites list. I was supposed to have a live show discussing this with some other booktubers, but that didn't happen just because there's technical difficulties and then life kind of got in the way, so I apologize for any of you that were going to be a part of that. The second one I read was The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, and this one I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I actually really liked it at the beginning and I really was into it, even though I'm not into dystopian. As it went on, I kind of liked it less, but it was still pretty good. The third one I read in January was Faithful Place by Tana French. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I love anything by Tana French. She is an Irish mystery writer, murder mystery writer. Her characters are so well developed, and anything you read by her, it just feels so real. So I will always read anything by her, and this is the third book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. The next one I read was Midwinterblood by Marcus Sedgewick, and this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This got an award for Publishers Weekly Best Children's Book of 2013, Kirkus Review's Best Teen Book of 2013. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought it was going to be some kind of like dystopian or something, but it wasn't. It takes place in all these different time periods. Most stories are told in a linear method, but this was like a circular story, and it was beautiful, it was creepy, and I really enjoyed it. In February, the first one I read was Jurassic Park by Michael Chrichton, and I just was excited for the new Jurassic Park movie coming out this summer, and I've always wanted to read Jurassic Park. I started it when I was like 12 and I only got a few chapters in, so I was like, I need to finish this. It was so much like the movie, but not like the movie at the same time. So I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in February was sent to me by HarperCollins. It was called Poison Apples, Poems for You, My Pretty by Chrstine Hepperman. This book had fairy tale themed poems, but with a feminist twist, and I really enjoyed it. It was well written, and I liked the idea of it. So I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was also like, it was kind of poetry, I guess, and it was kind of lyrical. It was also sent to me by HarperCollins, and it was called Kiss of Broken Glass by Madeleine Kunderick. It was about a girl who dealt with the issue of cutting. I would say it could be potentially triggering if you have an issue with that. I wasn't a fan of this book. I didn't think it was that well written. I didn't identify with the characters. The whole premise to me just seemed kind of unrealistic. It shouldn't have felt like that because the lady who wrote it, I think she based it on her daughter. Like, it was kind of based on a true story, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next one I read in February was The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, and this is a murder mystery, and it's been on the like top of the New York Times bestseller list for like months, and it's a psychological thriller with a twist ending, and I hated all the characters. You know, it was kind of like a Gillian Flynn novel, except, I mean, it wasn't good to me. Like, I totally saw the twist coming a mile away. I didn't like the writing. I hated the main character so bad that I just couldn't stand even spending time with her. So I gave that one 2 out of 5 stars, and I honestly do not understand the high ratings this one has received. I was so disappointed. The next one I read in February was The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. shepherd. I didn't realize this at the time, but this one is a retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau. If you're like me and you get at all upset about animals being hurt, then I would steer clear of this one, but I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. HarperCollins sent me, I think they sent me the second or third book to this, so I wanted to read the first one, and I really did enjoy it. It was very weird. The next one I read was called Show Your Work, 10 Ways to Share Your Creativity and Get Discovered by Austin Kleon. And this one goes along with the other one that Austin Kleon wrote, which was Steal Like an Artist, which I read last year. I like the first one better. This one was still great. I love his books. They're so simple, they're so fast to read, and they're just like filled with great advice and stuff that you can just reference really fast. I like to take these all over with me because they inspire me. I gave that one 5 out of 5 stars. The next one I read is a book that my mother read to me when I was just a little girl, and I've remembered it all these years, and I just remember loving it. It is called The Animal Family by Randall, Jarrell, illustrated by Maurice Sendak, who did Where the Wild Things Are. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It's amazing. It's about a family of like a hunter and a mermaid and a bear. It's just so cute. The next one I read was The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. And this one is a vampire book. I'm not really a fan of vampire books, just kind of like I'm not a fan of dystopian, but you know, sometimes I read them. I really like her writing. She was a good writer. The idea of the book was really interesting to me. It was an enjoyable read, but it wasn't like my favorite. I gave that one 3 out of 5 stars. In April, I read American Quartet by Warren Adler. This is a political thriller, and I just did a review on this. If you want to watch that, I will leave a link somewhere floating here. The next one I read was also for review, and it was called I Wish Raisins Could Float by Gerald Walker, and illustrated by Jesse Bergen and Jessica Alicio. This one is a children's book, and I did also a review of this, and I will leave that over here. I gave that one 3 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was Crank by Ellen Hopkins, and I read this one because a friend of mine really, like, it's her favorite book and she loved it. I thought her writing was beautiful, like it was so like vivid, but I didn't like the story at all. It didn't relate to the characters, and it just kind of annoyed me, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. But it's not because Ellen Hopkins is a bad writer, because I think she is an amazing writer. I just didn't care for the story. The next book I read was Hansel and Gretel by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Lorenzo Matati. This was just the story of Hansel and Gretel told by Neil Gaiman. I did like this. It was cute. The writing was good, as always with Neil Gaiman. But I guess, I don't know, I was hoping for a little bit more. I don't know what I was hoping for. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So I gave that one 3 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was a murder mystery, and it was called Dark Rooms by Lili Anolik, and this one was about a girl at a private prep school on the East Coast, and her sister gets murdered, and it's just a murder mystery. I probably started off thinking I would give it 3 stars, but then I changed it to 2 just because there's so many things I didn't like about it, and the ending just did not feel satisfying. When I found out who the killer was, I was just like, oh. I enjoyed reading it, but I didn't really like it, so I gave that one 2 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This one is a Pulitzer Prize winner. I had to read this just because so many people have recommended it to me and said it's one of their favorite books or they loved it. It's one of those novels that, like, the critics say it's boring, nothing happens, but I think a lot of people get confused. It's more of a literary novel, and literary novels are more character driven than plot driven. So I feel like that's what it was, and I thought it was beautiful. The writing was amazing, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It felt like what depression feels like, just this dark, ashen, gray hopelessness. It made me depressed, but it was so good. The next one I read, I don't know why I chose this one, but I'd been wanting to read it forever because it's a classic, and I've never read it, and it's The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This one, for some reason, I thought somebody was gonna die at the end. I thought some big thing happened, but this was more like a little literary novel too. More character driven. I can see why this is a classic. It has so many different levels to it. The character of Holden Caulfield is, I think, one of the best written characters I've ever read. So I was very impressed by that. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, but part of me is leaning towards 5 stars, maybe 4.5. The next one I read was another one that I've been wanting to read for a really long time, and it is A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. I decided to read this because I loved Libba Bray's writing in The Diviners, so I expected the same thing from this one. And I don't think it was as good as The Diviners, but when I first started this, I thought, oh my god, this is amazing. It's like a mix of Secret Garden, Little Princess, and The Unbecoming Amara Dyer. So I was just like, so totally loved it. There were flaws in it, but I was willing to accept those flaws because I liked it so much. I liked the setting so much. But then I really didn't like the ending, and it just got really weird, so I ended up giving that one between 2 to 3 stars. I did enjoy reading it up until the end. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. I said I wasn't going to, but I think I might, just because I liked the world that it took place in. The next one I read in April was Trigger Warning, Short Fictions and Disturbances by Neil Gaiman. It's Neil Gaiman's latest book, so I obviously had to read it. I really enjoyed it. The stories were so different from each other. Neil Gaiman can write so many different things. It's just very impressive, and his writing's always good. It wasn't my favorite Neil Gaiman book, but I did enjoy it a lot, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was also by Neil Gaiman, and it is Odd and the Frost Giants, and this is a children's book. The illustrations are by Mark Buckingham. He took some characters from mythology and created a story of it, and it was a fun little read. It was cute. It had a happy little ending, so I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. And the last one I read, I actually read this in May, was The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. This one I absolutely loved so much. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I've added it to my favorites list. It was like just amazing. So good and so sad. And the title describes it perfectly. It's honestly filled with strange and beautiful sorrows. I identified with this book so much, just the feelings. It's basically about love and how we all love and we all get hurt, and in turn we hurt others. And it's about a girl who was born with wings, but it's more of a generational story. The main character, Ava, doesn't even arrive until like halfway through the book. It took place in Seattle, so I like knew all these places, and I just identified with the character so much. I just love the ending, and the whole time I was reading this I was thinking of that Ed Sheeran video, Give Me Love, with the Cupid girl. Let me know in the comments below what you're reading and what your favorite books have been this year. Let me know if you want to see all the books I read last year, because I still want to make a video on that. Whoa, I just feel like I talked so fast. Thank you guys for watching again, and I will see you later.
Give me love like her. Lately I've been waking